The battle for the final roster spots on the New York Islanders this season is heating up. We're going to have that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We have got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com, and if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I'm live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Things are heating up as training camp is winding down. I mean, thing about hockey training camps, you blink and they're over. I mean, it's what, 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, and then, you know, it's all done. And when you think that there are 6 preseason games in there, well, that makes it even less time to actually, spend on the ice figuring out your power play system, your penalty kill system, your line combinations, who's going to make the team, all of that. Your coach only has limited amounts of time. Now, in the preseason, maybe some of the good news, not a lot of travel. The Islanders are either playing the Flyers, the Devils, or the Rangers in all 6 games. So, a 90-minute train ride is probably as far as the Islanders are going as far as travel is concerned. But let's get down to brass tacks here. We have one preseason game coming up. That will be on Friday, and then it's showtime. Rosters due by the 7th. Opening night for the Islanders on the 10th. And, it's getting real close right now to the start of the season. And one thing I think we're seeing when it comes to the overall situation here through 5 preseason games, you're sort of trying to read between the lines and read the tea leaves. And here's, among the other things that I'm seeing, Patrick Roy wants this team to play a certain way. And, the way he wants them to play very much is faster and a little more organized in their own zone, which everydayers know is something we've been talking about for far too long with this team, not just this year, but really for a long time. And it's necessary for the New York Islanders to play that style, to do the Patrick Roy thing. And that's why I think we're seeing, you talk about some of the guys at the bottom of the roster fighting for those last spots. Who are we seeing that's really doing making an impression? The one thing that Julien Gauthier, has in common, and Liam Foudy, and all these guys that are sort of making a case for themselves, Frederick Karlstrom, all of them have speed. And the ones that are sticking or getting more chances to show what they could do are not just fast, but they're playing responsibly in their own end. And they're sticking to the program that Patrick Waugh is laying out. And that, to me, is telling. It shows me from day one the kind of game that the Islanders are looking to play. And hopefully, that is something that they can keep going, because the big difference between last year and this year is that Patrick Waugh this year, had a half season almost of games as the coach of this team last year. And then B, he's there from day one, installing his system, bringing in his coaches, and the players, they're not adjusting on the fly like they had to last year after the firing of Lane Lambert. They are from day one, this is the type of game I want you to play, and let's figure out, the best line combinations and the best ways to play it. Update, by the way, Semyon Varlamov back in practice, so that was good. On Tuesday, Hudson Fasching skating separately. He's still dealing with a lower body injury. Liam Foudy, Fredrik Karlsson, and Jakob Skarek all skated separately. Ryan Pollock out of practice. No timetable as of right now for Fasching. No timetable as of right now for Ilya Sorokin, who is still officially listed as day-to-day, even though, here we are a couple of weeks into training camp. So, I mean, there are some things that I think are becoming clearer when it comes to who's most likely to make this team and who's not. And you look at the big picture and you see which players have played well in the preseason. And then you start to say, okay, there are this many players for this many spots, and we're going to see who gets there. I think we're talking about 6 guys for 2 spots when push comes to shove. And whether or not the New York Islanders make the right choices, that's going to be important. And keep in mind, barring injuries, none of these choices are etched in stone. One thing we do know about Patrick Waugh, he's not afraid to mix it up. He's not afraid to change his lines in the middle of a game if the team is struggling. He's not afraid to change his lines, shift by shift, period by period, game by game. Unless a trio is clicking, he'll break them up. I mean, last year at the beginning of the year, Nelson, Engvall, and Palmieri was etched in stone. Didn't stay that way. Anders Lee started the season on the first line. Didn't stay that way. We saw how many different guys fill in on that first line with Bo and Barzy. We know that even if, pick a guy, but, even if, let's say, Oliver Wahlstrom makes the team and starts off playing every day, if he doesn't play well, he's not going to stay in the lineup. And that's another difference I think that Patrick Waugh brings to the table, and it's a positive one, because one thing this team seemed to lack under Lane Lambert, and at times, in some ways, even under Barry Trotz, although less so under Trotz, was accountability. Because there was sort of a double standard in the past about this hockey team. Young guys, whether it was, William Dufour on the one game he came up for, Atu Ratu, Samuel Bolduc, Oliver Wahlstrom. Young guys made a mistake, they sat. Veterans made the same mistake game after game after game. They were out there game after game after game. And when you feel like no matter what you do, your lineup spot is secure, that's generally not good incentive to make you play your best at all times. So the fact that whoever is in the lineup on opening day not only may not be in the lineup in a week or two or even a game, or may even be sent down to Bridgeport at some point or traded at some point, I think it keeps the players on this roster hungry and eager and knowing that they've got to play their best at all times if they want to remain on the team and then in the lineup. So, with all of that in mind, as I mentioned, we're talking about roughly 6 players for 2 spots on the roster. We're going to break all that down, talk about the candidates, who's most likely to make it and why, what their positives and negatives are. We're going to have that. Plus, the Islanders are set to announce a new alternate captain. Let's see if you can guess who that is. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a career Islander who was a number 1 pick in the late 2000 teens and just ended his tenure with the team a year ago. Let's see if you can guess who that is. Pretty easy one, I think, and many of you know his song. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time remains the view from your seat. You can go on the app and get a panoramic view of your seat, the view from your seat before you buy the tickets. That way you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That'll get you $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So, 6 guys for 2 spots. 6 guys for 2 spots. Where does it end up? That is sort of the big question for the New York Islanders. And hopefully, we will start to get some answers. It's got to be, realistically, an answer in the next couple of weeks. Less than a week, really, before the season gets underway. So, what are we looking at here as far as the depth situation is concerned? 6 guys for 2 spots. And to me, what you have to look at is who's playing well, who seems to be getting positive feedback from your coach, and who seems to be struggling from your coach. Those are sort of the big questions to ask. So who's going to do it? Well, Oliver Wahlstrom, obviously, a candidate. And I can't say I'm overly optimistic that Wally ends up on this team. Why? Well, here's the bottom line. Yeah, he scored a goal in the preseason. Yeah, he's got that excellent shot. But everything I've heard from Patrick Waugh kind of tells me he doesn't love the type of game that he sees right now from Oliver Wahlstrom. Now, Lou Lamoriello has said in the past that, he does not believe that he wants to lose Wally for nothing. He's going to probably try to trade Oliver Wahlstrom before October 7th or maybe even after October 7th. But, he's going to try to make a move involving Wally. The question becomes whether or not there are any takers. And teams are most likely going to say, hey, I'll wait it out. I will wait it out because we don't need, he'll hit waivers. Yeah, I'm not guaranteed to get first dibs on him if he hits waivers, but I don't have to pay anything either. And I'm sure at this point, if the Islanders do trade Oliver Wahlstrom, they're not getting a lot back, but it would be better than losing him on waivers. We'll see, but I'd be surprised if Oliver Wahlstrom is on the roster. I think he's either put through waivers, unclaimed, sent to Bridgeport, traded, or if he does make the roster, he's sitting in the press box. Second candidate, Hudson Fasching. Hudson Fasching is injured right now. Fasching looked pretty good early in the preseason before he suffered the injury, but I don't necessarily think he's guaranteed a roster spot. And if he does get a roster spot, it would not surprise me if he is indeed the 13th forward or the 14th forward on this team. We'll see. He could also start on IR, not LTIR, because I don't think his injury is that serious. He's already skating on his own, but we'll see, how that plays out. Julien Gauthier. Again, a guy who has been showing flashes in the preseason, who is making things difficult for Patrick Roy to let him go. And, he thinks he has a shot at the lineup. They've been giving me some trust just by showing I can be in the lineup tonight. He said before the game against the Flyers, just got to make the most of it. Obviously, if it keeps going well like that, I don't see why I can't make the team. Let's see. Let's see how that works. And again, I think Fasching I think Gauthier has a consistency issue. Patrick Roy, as we said in the first segment, looking for speed. Okay, good. Gauthier gives it to you. But does he give you the effort in the corners? Does he play defense consistently? Does he give you everything he's got in a game in and game out basis? And historically, Julien Gauthier is one of those guys who has talent, but doesn't always consistently put it together. So we'll see whether or not he finishes the preseason and training camp strong enough to earn a roster spot. And then if he does earn a roster spot, whether or not he's actually in the lineup. Matt Martin on a PTO, doesn't have a contract. The only way the Islanders can fit Matt Martin onto this roster is if either they place Ilya Sorokin on LTIR or they send down a couple of the guys on this list, trade away Wahlstrom, and then maybe, trade away someone else or waive someone else and send them down to Bridgeport. It is not going to be easy to find cap space. I know that the Islanders organization likes Matt Martin. I know they respect Matt Martin. I love him as a guy as far as, he's been a great Islander. He's been a great part of the Long Island community. He adds a physical dimension that this team does not have in abundance right now. But, is there room for him on this roster? There are a couple of options. They could send Matt Martin down to the minors if they sign him to a contract. they could keep him on a PTO and let him practice with the team, but he couldn't play with the team. And then if injuries hit, sign him, or if somebody gets traded away. Or he could be, in my mind, the next Ross Johnston. And what I mean by that is 2 years ago, last year on the island, what did Ross Johnston play? 25 games out of 82 when the Islanders were going up against a physical opponent. Hey, we're playing the Capitals. Tom Wilson's going to be out there. Let's get, Ross Johnston into the lineup so we're not getting pushed around. I think those are the most likely outcomes. I don't see Matt Martin making the initial roster and then, getting a spot on the team that easily. But I still think he will be somewhere in the organization. And then you've got Pierre Engvall. Pierre Engvall, if you asked me before training camp started, I'd say he had at least a roster spot locked up. Whether he was going to play on the second line, third line, or fourth line, I thought it would be third. But regardless of where it was going to be, I would have told you I think Pierre Engvall is on this roster. And every day, as you know, we talked about this on Tuesday's show, how, Engvall has not been impressing Patrick Waugh, and he may not make this roster. Now, in order for him to go to Bridgeport, they'd have to put him on waivers and, again, risk losing him for nothing. But I don't think anybody is going to sign up for 6 or commit to 6 years of Pierre Engvall. So we'll see which two of these guys, maybe a third, and I guess Samuel Bolduc gets added in. He's most likely the 7th defenseman to start the season. So out of those 6 guys, 3 make the roster if you have the full 23. Islanders, as of right now, only have enough room for 22 under the cap. Is Lou going to make a trade? Is he going to put, Sorokin on LTIR? Or is he going to start the season with a 22-man roster? We will learn all of that. We'll see who makes the roster. A lot of guys fighting for spots. Competition is good. We'll see how it plays out. More to come on today's show. The Islanders announcing soon a new alternate captain. We'll talk about that. We have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the very same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And hey, Islander fans, the opener is a little more than a week away. Check out the odds for that. Maybe you want to bet on the, how many points that Matthew Barzal is going to get, or Noah Dobson, or how many points the Islanders will have by the end of the season. Check out all the latest odds at FanDuel. Again, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just go to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now for your second listen, go find Locked On NHL, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We know Cal Clutterbuck is not an Islander anymore. Clutter wore the A on his jersey last year. And now he's gone. So we know Anders Lee right now. He's the captain. Brock Nelson is one of the alternate captains. Now we have to see who gets the other A on their jersey or sweater. And according to rumors and according to the hockey news, looks like it's going to be Bo Horvat, who was the captain of the Canucks before they traded him to the Islanders, who's most likely to get the A. Horvat basically said to the Hockey News, anytime you get an opportunity like this, it's special. You don't take that lightly. You just try to work with class, perform every single game, and lead by example. And, look, I think Horvat has been a leader on this team even without the letter. And now I think he definitely deserves the A on his chest. Here's what Anders Lee added. This is who he is. He's a high character guy who plays the right way and acts the right way. He's a true professional. And I think the second he came in here, we knew right away. And it's been a joy working with him. He's one of the guys in the room who knows when to say something and knows when to hold back. He does it the right way. So I think it makes sense. I think Bo Horvat, we kind of knew was a candidate for a letter. If Anders Lee leaves the Islanders at some point, Horvat would be one of the candidates to get a C. But right now, it looks like he is going to get an A for an alternate captain, and I think it is deserved. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day, and today is the 35th birthday of former Islanders forward Josh Bailey. Bailey, first-round pick of the Islanders, 9th overall in 2008. Islanders brought him right to the NHL. He played 68 games as a rookie and stayed with the Islanders all the way through the 2022-2023 season. 1,057 games in his career, 184 goals, 396 assists, 580 points, add 16 goals, 50 points in 71 playoff games. Bales tended to step up his game in the postseason. One of his better games during the regular season, though, how about November 22nd, 2017 in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. Islanders hosting the Philadelphia Flyers. Brian Elliott, the Flyers goalie. Tomas Greiss in between the pipes for the New York Islanders. And after the Islanders fall behind 1-0, they go on the power play late in the first period. And Josh Bailey, our Islanders' birthday of the day, sets up Matthew Barzal. Anders Lee with the other assist, ties the game at 1. Islanders fall behind 2-1 and again go on the power play. Josh Bailey sets up Johnny Boychuk, the other assist to John Tavares. That makes it a 2-2 game. It's 3-3 after regulation. And in overtime, Josh Bailey plays the hero. 32 seconds into the extra period, he beats Elliott and gives the Islanders the win. Final score, Islanders 4, Flyers 3. Nick Leddy and John Tavares with the other assists for Josh Bailey. A goal, 2 assists, a 3-point night. He had a +1. He scored the game winner, and he led the team with 6 shots on goal in 20 minutes and 54 seconds of ice time. Josh Bailey, a class act who Islander fans watched go from an 18-year-old rookie to a mature adult who was a leader on this team during his prime, although, his play fell off in that last season. But boy, was he big in the playoffs. You go back to the 2020 playoffs, 20 points in 22 games in the Islanders' run to the conference final. Josh Bailey is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, we will be back tomorrow with more of a season preview approach to the New York Islanders. We will talk about some bold predictions about what to expect this year from the Islanders, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.